Hello, all. So, this has been a while, but we'll continue talking about emails. So, if you are new to this playlist or watching this video for the first time, I request you to go to the channel, and there is a playlist of emails. And we have covered some points, so I'll not kind of revisit them in the future videos. How you set up email accounts, what are email scenarios, what are default attachments, and then there are some other videos. So do watch at least the first two videos so that you have a context. Going forward, what we'll be doing on this particular playlist is keep adding code scenarios. How you write different emails from Business Central. What are the capabilities? How you write beautiful email bodies, or how you can attach attachments into emails. We'll start with pretty basic, and as we go through in this series, we'll continue covering the scenarios. During this series, if you have any questions around emailing, please add them into comments. I'll read all my comments and I'll add those scenarios as you add them. So for today's video, what we'll be doing, we'll be writing in simple email, how you write that, and then as we go forward in the series, we'll continue expanding on that. All the source code for this video and the future videos will be available in this GitHub repo. I'll add it into the pin comments, and you can download the source code from GitHub anytime. Okay, so without wasting further time, I have cloned the repo and I have created a folder called custom emails, and we'll see it from there. So let's try to keep it simple. In the first video, from a development perspective on emails, we'll try to write a simple email. And for that, let's say we call our code unit as custom emails. And let's finish this. Okay. Now let's think about it, what we need for sending an email. We need a from address, who is sending the email. We need a recipient or to address, and then we need a subject, and then we need the email body. With these minimum 4 parameters, you can actually send an email, and that's what we'll be doing in this video. Now, if you have watched the previous video, you will understand some objects here. If you don't, we'll talk about it. So first, let's try to write a procedure to send a simple email. So let's do a procedure, and we'll call it as send simple email. Now, there are two types or two styles from which you can send emails from Business Central as of today. So in the whole series, we'll be trying to cover both types, so that whatever you prefer, you can use that. So the first one, which is most commonly used by Microsoft as of today, is there's a table called temp. It's not called temp, but I'll walk through it. Email item. Whenever you create a reference to this table, always create it as temporary. That's what's suggested by Microsoft. And this table is used to fill in all the fields which are required for simple or complex email. And then there are some methods which allows you to send the email. So let's quickly see that. Who is sending the email? What is his address? Whom it is going to? Is there a CC person? Is there a BCC person? What is the subject in text? What is the email body, which is a blob? And then there are some attachment and other fields, which we'll see as we move forward in the series. So to begin with, what is the simple way to send an email is, let's start setting up the variables into this email item dot send to, and I'll come to it why I'm doing that. And you can, for the simplest email, I'll hard code this as my personal email ID, and then we'll do a subject as test email. And then the third thing that we said is the body. Now, if you remember, when we looked at it, the body was set to be a blob. Now, you need to refer to the Microsoft objects, because Microsoft makes life simpler for developers at least. So there are methods to set body text. So when you call this method, you can pass a text of the email body that you want to pass, and it automatically converts it into the blob and assigns it to the field. So I can just call this method with the text that I want to set on it. So I can call it here and say my body text should be this, not this, but this. Now this will get added into my email body. So we have defined the recipient of the email, we have defined the subject, we have defined the body. The only thing that is remaining is who is sending the email. Now, if you have watched the previous video in this series, or if you know about how emails are configured in Business Central, you'll remember that we talked about that there is a table or a setup where you define email accounts. And here you can define one or more email account, and based on these email account, you can also set up the different scenarios. So when you look at email scenarios, you'll be able to see that this sender will be used when these scenarios are being called for. This email will be used when these scenarios will be called off. And if no scenario is mentioned, then the default is automatically picked. And we have talked about it. So in the same way, considering that in mind, you cannot define who's sending the email. You will have to define the scenario. And based on the scenario and the setup in Business Central, the system will be able to pick who will be the sender of that email. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So let's do that. So how we send an email? We do a temp email item dot send, and then this send have overloads. So when you click on it, you see that there are two ways to call a send. One is just with one boolean called hide mail dialog, and the second one is hide mail dialog with scenario. Now, if you call the first one, the scenario will be picked as default. In the second one, you can choose which scenario you want. What is the first boolean, the hide mail dialogs? It says that if you set the first parameter to true, then send that email in the background and user will not get a pop-up screen of the email editor. If you want user to see and review the email before it is sent, then set it to false. So if I set it to false, then I'll be able to see that. Now for the second parameter, which is scenarios, I'll have to define the enum here, which is enum, email scenarios, and then I can define my email scenario, which is any of these. So just for the demo, let's say I use for purchase order because I have already defined an email account against it. With this code, a editor will open and user will be able to review the email before he or she hits the send. If you want to send it in the background, then just set it to true. Okay, so that's how simple it is to send out an email from Business Central. But I said in the beginning is that there are two styles of sending email. So let's come to the other style. So let's define a procedure again, and this time we'll call it as send simple email, and I'll call it new style. Okay, and then I'll call it as old style, just to keep it simple. And here I will need scenarios because that's mandatory everywhere it seems. And then for emailing, now there is a new code unit which is called email message, and not record, it's a code unit. Okay, what happens with the email message, that there are different methods that are available which helps you to create email. So when you have to create the email, typically what method you will be looking for is create. Now create, if you can see, have 3 overload. That means there are 4 different ways how you can call a create method. So let's see what those ways are. So the first one is define your recipients in text, define your subject in text, and define your body in text, and I'll prepare an email for you. The second one is define your recipients as text, subject as text, body as text, and then we'll talk about it in future video, but there is a boolean called HTML formatted. The third one is where you can define recipient as list of text. That means if you have multiple recipient and you don't want to pass them with a comma separated or colon separated value, then you can automatically add them into a list of text data type, and the engine of Microsoft will automatically convert that into recipients and add that into email. And then pass the subject as text, body as text, and HTML format. What is the last one? The last one have everything what previous one had. Additionally, it allows you to add CC recipient with list of text and BCC recipient as list of text. For the context of this video, we'll keep the first one, which is the simple one. But if you are interested in knowing about the other ones and how to use them, just put a comment, pause the video and add a comment, and I'll make a video on it. So the first one is to recipient. So let's do that. Let's pass it as it is. Okay. The second one is subject. So let's pass the subject. And third one is the body, which is this is a test email. With this, the email is actually created. But now comes the discussion of sending it. So is there something called a send? I doubt, but let's see. There's nothing for send. So for sending email with the new style, what you'll have to do is you'll also have to define or set up a new or define a new code unit here called email. And this code unit have a method of send, which have multiple overloads again. What are the overloads? The first one says give me a reference of code unit email message, which we have, and then I'll return you a boolean, is the mail send or not. The second one says give me the email message and the scenario. The third one says give me the email message and the email account record if you want to pick a email account. So in this case, it seems in the third overload that you don't have to stick to the scenario. You can even pick the sender name based on the emails that you have created, accounts that you have created. And the fourth one gives you option to give the email account GUID and the connector if you are using different connectors. If you are interested to see all these overloads, add that into the comment section. We'll talk about it. But for this video, we'll just keep it simple. We'll give it the email message and the scenario. So the email message is created here, and the scenario is, let's keep it default in this case. Okay. Let me do default. Okay. So with this 2 line of code with the new style, you can send an email. Pretty easy. In the old style, which is most commonly used by Microsoft as of today, you'll have to set up things. But there are things which are easier and complex when you choose either of those options. When we go a little bit complex into these scenarios. So we'll see that. So before we run out of time, let's create a global func procedure which then will be able to call these method called send simple email. Okay. Here. And let's put a confirmation. If confirm, do you want to send email with old style? And I should not be calling it old style. It's still supported. So when I'm saying old, it does not mean that it does not, it's deprecated or something. It is still working. There is no deprecation policy on it. I'm just calling it old because it has been existed for a while in the product. It was there in NAV and all, in BC14 and all. So this method will ask you a question and will show you that option. In the first one, we have chosen the purchase order. In the second one, we have chosen the default one. Now somehow we'll have to add it somewhere in the page. So let me create a new folder here called page extension. Okay. And let's create a new page extension. What is the page extension we are creating? Let's add it into the email account page. Okay. Okay, email accounts, and that's done. Okay, now in this, in the actions, let's add it in at last of processing somewhere, and then let's add an action. We'll call it as SDH simple email, and we'll give it a caption, sample email, and I'll have to add a tooltip to this, so let's add that. And then here I'll create a variable for the code unit that we have, which is the custom emails. Okay, custom email of type code unit SDH custom email, and from this I'll call problem emails. So SDH custom email dot send sample email will do everything for us because send sample email. Okay, simple. Now what we'll do is we will publish this extension on our demo environment here, and we'll see how that works. So let me publish it directly from here. Just FYI, these are just the demo videos, so don't, it's not a best policy that you start publishing from your VS Code, at least on your sandbox environment. I would go ahead and say you should not publish anything to any environment from VS Code directly. You should be building the app from your source control using CI/CD pipelines, and then get the app and deploy an environment. These are just for the demos, so I'm doing that, but I highly encourage you to not follow this F5 step until unless you are doing it on a demo environment somewhere. Okay, a complete no for production, and okay, allowed in some sandbox situations. Okay, so let's search for that page where we have added this, which is the email accounts page. And here we have added somewhere sample email. So the first sample email will ask you, do you want to send with the old style? And we'll say yes. In the old style, remember we have chosen the purchase as the scenario. So when I click yes, I should be able to see the email coming from the purchase scenario, the sender email, right? We got the recipient email as we have decided in the email, the subject, and the message body. Okay, let's discard this and let's use the new one. Sample email, and we say no this time. This time it should pick the sales demo because that's the default one. So when I click on that, it actually sended it, and it might fail because there is a fake email ID there. So let me just check in the outbox. Nothing here yet, but let's see the code. Did I do any mistake while I was running through? Maybe. Okay. So the email sent will automatically send that email behind the scene. So send the email in current session true if the email was sent successfully, otherwise false. So the return value is true or false. Okay. But what if you have to open that email like we did in the old style? In that case, you'll have to search for another method in the same code unit called open in editor. If you see that there is open in modally with scenario, and let's keep the simple one open in editor, and let's see what the overloads are because there are multiple overloads for this also. So you can call it just with the email message, you can call it with the email message and scenario, you can also call it with the email account and the other thing that we saw. For this video we'll keep it simple, and we'll pass the same parameters here and put a comment here. Okay, so let's save this and let's hit F5 to see what happens here. In that, let me see what is in our box. There's that email which you see that it is failed because I was trying to do something and I don't have permission to kind of send it from there. Okay, now let's come here and open the page called email accounts and we'll test it out again. So we tested the old style. Now we just have to test the new style code. So we'll do is send sample email and not with the old style. I'll pick up the new style. And now if you see the from address is from the sales demo. The reason of being the sender address sales demo because in our code we have used that we want to use the default scenario and the default is set for the sales profile. The two addresses same, the subject is same, the message is same, and there are no attachment at this point. So as of today or in this video, what we wanted to understand is how you send a simple email. Remember, the three major things that you need is whom you are sending to, what is the subject, what is the body, and who is the sender. The sender is defined based on your email accounts and your email scenarios. If you have any questions based on what we covered today, let me know. There will be a next video tomorrow, which will go a little bit complex into these scenarios. But if you have any questions that we talked about, or if you are struggling with some email code, do let me know into the comments, and I'll be happy to make that part of this series. So I'll soon you to see you tomorrow, sooner than later. And then if you like the content, do hit the like button. If you enjoyed the content, then share it with your colleagues. And if you haven't, please subscribe to the channel. That helps us to understand what you are doing is aligning to what you guys want. So thank you and see you next time.